Going on, guys? This is Greg here, and I just wanted to do a video today about the top 5 skills that I believe are important for an SHTF situation, WROL, the end of the world as we know it, zombie apocalypse, whatever the situation is. So these are what I think are the top 5 skills. I'm going to start with number 5, and then I'm going to go down to number 1. So number 5 is going to be shooting and firearms. I know a lot of preppers would probably put this as number 1 on their list, but shooting and firearms would be number 5. And within shooting and firearms, you're going to want to know a couple things. I just wrote some quick bullet points here. I'm not going to get too detailed with this video. I'm just doing a quick list, and I'm going to go over, some basic components of each skill that I think everybody should know. So under shooting and firearms, which is a number 5 skill, fifth most important skill, you're going to want to know obviously how to sight in different types of weapons. You're going to want to know what minute of angles are. You may want to know what mils are. Being able to understand ballistics, internal and external ballistics is going to be important. You're going to want to know how to clean different weapons, how to disassemble them. You're going to want to know the fundamentals of marksmanship. You're going to want to know how to shoot different weapons. You're going to want to know the 4 basic positions to shoot from. You're going to want to know basic gunsmithing. So if you have to fix a weapon or make a weapon operable, if you have a weapon that's inoperable, you can fix it and make it work. You don't have to be a crazy gunsmith, but it wouldn't hurt if you learned a little gunsmithing skills. And that goes into also learning how different types of weapons operate. So you want to know the difference between a semi-automatic, revolver, bolt action, pump action, slide action, single shot, break action. You're going to want to know the different ways that those weapons, the most common small arms weapons, operate. We're just talking about small arms here. And then you're going to want to know how to hand load. Your hand loading is important because in a SHTF situation, you may have to reuse your shells, and you may have to scavenge components. You may be able to melt down lead from different sources, and you can melt the lead down and cast your own bullets. So number 5, the 5th most important skill is shooting and firearms. So now moving on to the 4th most important skill is navigation. And navigation can be broken down into 2 categories. You're going to have land navigation, and then you're going to have ocean or water navigation, which are kind of similar, but they're kind of different as well. Generally speaking, navigating on water is much more complicated and requires much more skill and more fine-tuning. It's much more of a much more in-depth skills are required for water navigation. It doesn't hurt to learn, some basic water navigation skills in case you find yourself in a boat for whatever reason, or you have to take a boat and use a boat to escape an area, or if you have a boat, whatever the situation is. It doesn't hurt to know some basic water navigation, but primarily land navigation is going to be important. You're going to want to know how to use a compass. You're going to want to know how to read maps. You're going to want to know how to understand map scales. All that stuff. I'm not going to get too into it. And then you're going to want to know your peripheral tools that are associated with navigation. So you're going to want to know how to use like a map square or a protractor. Pace counting beads. You're going to want to know your pace count. Again, I'm not going to really go into the details of those. You're going to have to research that on your own. I have some land navigation videos on my channel here. I'm going to upload some more videos when I have time to make them. I'm going to do some more land navigation videos. Also you're going to want to know your different, distance measurements. You're going to want to know, how to convert between yards, meters, miles, kilometers, nautical miles, fathoms. You're going to want to understand what that means. How many feet are in a mile, how many yards are in a mile, how many miles are in a nautical mile, how many kilometers are in a mile. You know, you're going to want to understand these things so you can quickly convert measurements in your head without having to use, you know, a calculator or something. You know, you can quickly do it in your head, do the math, you know, and understanding those different measurements, you know, how many yards are in a meter, how many meters are in a mile, you know, all that kind of stuff. You're going to want to know how to convert measurements. That's definitely a good skill to have. So navigation is the fourth most important skill. Let's see, number 3, which would be the third most important skill, is going to be hand-to-hand combat and self-defense skills. And the reason why I put this as a more important skill than shooting and firearms is because, you know, no matter where you are, you know, you're always going to have your hands and your feet and your body. You know, you're always going to have that, you know. And so you can always use that to your advantage to defend yourself, you know, and you may not always have a firearm with you depending on the situation. You may lose your firearm. You may damage your firearm. Your firearm may become inoperable for whatever reason. So you're always going to want to have some basic fighting skills so you can defend yourself, so you can protect your family, so you can protect loved ones, so you can protect other, you know, civilians, other people around you, you know. So, you know, being able to fight and being able to protect yourself is going to be the third most important skill for SHTF situations, to survive an SHTF situation. And, you know, the thing with hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, and fighting, everybody has different, there's no, like, one size fits all. So, like, you know, nowadays UFC is popular and everybody thinks that, like, you know, the best arts to know is, like, you know, some type of boxing or kickboxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or some type of ground combat, you know. And that's obviously great, you know, if you are able to fight standing up and on the ground and have a good system for both of those, that's great. But you have to figure out what works best for you, you know. There's no like one solution for everybody. So like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu may be something that's good for you, but it may not be good for somebody else. Or boxing, you know, it depends on how you're physically built, you know, your strength, you know, your endurance level, your any type of physical limitations or disabilities that you have. So you kind of have to figure out what works for you, and don't look at other people and say, oh, you know, this guy, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or this guy's a black belt in Taekwondo. You know, I don't know anything. I can't defend myself. That's not true, you know. Just learn basic strikes, basic kicks, you know, basic chokeholds, basic ways that you can incapacitate people, you know. Learn the vulnerable parts of the body, stuff like that. You don't have to be an expert, you know, black belt in multiple arts or UFC fighter to be able to defend yourself, you know. And a lot of fighting and self-defense is also mental, you know, having a good mental state, you know. It's the person that has the will to survive is the one that's going to beat out the person that has the skills to survive, you know. So like, you may have more skills than me. You may know how to start a fire 500 different ways, you know, and you may have 7 black belts, you know. But, you know, if I have a lighter and I have, you know, a club in my hand, I can still start a fire faster than you, and I could still potentially beat you up. So just because someone has more skills than you doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to, you know, be able to beat you. It's a lot of it is your intelligence, the ability to adapt, and, you know, your physical conditioning is very important for self-defense. You know, being in good physical shape, you know, strength, endurance, aerobic capacity, those are important for fighting and self-defense. So you want to, you know, get those as best as you can right now before SHTF hits. So third most important skill is hand-to-hand combat. So we're going to move into the second most important skill, which is your medical skills. All right, guys, so your medical skills, you know, you're going to want to, second most important skill for surviving SHTF is medical skill. You're going to want to know how to deal with trauma, with major injuries. You're going to want to know how to control bleeding. You're going to want to know how to deal with, emergency medicine is very good to know. CPR, wilderness first aid. You're going to want to know how to deal with diseases. If let's say you get an allergic reaction, or you get infected by some type of bacteria or virus, or, you get some type of foodborne illness or a parasite, you're going to want to know how to deal with that in an SHTF situation, Obviously, if you take some emergency medical training, that's very good for you. Very good to know emergency medicine. But also it's good to know a lot about like infections, pathogens, bacterias, viruses, parasites, because you're going to be dealing with that, microorganisms. If you're out in a SHTF situation, you're going to be exposed to the elements. You're not going to be inside of a house all day like you are now. Or inside of an office building or whatever. You're going to be outside exposed to everything, all kinds of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, etc. So you're going to want to know, how to protect yourself from those different pathogens, and you're going to want to know how to treat diseases related to those pathogens. You're going to want to know about purifying water, cooking, how to cook food properly so you kill any type of parasites. So medical skills is the second most important skill that I think you're going to need for SHTF. And then the top skill, the most important skill, number one skill that you should have for surviving SHTF is the ability to procure food and water. So this should be obvious, but you're going to want to know how to, you're going to want to know how to feed yourself and keep yourself hydrated. So you're going to want to know how to hunt. You're going to want to know how to trap fish, how to gather different types of wild edibles. You're going to want to know sources of water in your area, or where you work. Something happens where you work, you're going to want to know areas that you can go to get food and water. There may be some some urban type water sources. You can get a four-way key, and you could use that to open water valves outside of buildings, so you can refill your water, or gather water that way. You can get water from snow, from rainwater, underground, obviously, bodies of water, lakes, streams, ponds, things of that nature. But you're going to want to know how to gather water, because without water, you're going to die, faster than when you don't have food. So, learn how to gather water, learn how to purify water. There's many different ways to purify water. I'm not going to get into that, but the basic things is, you got your bleach, you got iodine, you got bleach, iodine, chlorine dioxide. What else can you use? You got water filters. And then you can boil. Boiling is going to be the best. Nothing beats boiling. Boiling is the best way to purify water. But you can also use bleach. Depending on the concentration of bleach, it's usually about 1 or 2 drops per quart. But it really depends on the bleach, what the concentration is. So you're going to want to know how to gather water, how to purify it, and same thing with food. You're going to want to know how to get food so you stay fed. So that's basically it for this video. This is my top 5 skills for surviving an SHTF situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.